Hey, what's up everybody? Andre with AndreReese.Biz. All right guys, I am back again. Man, can't stop, won't stop, will never stop. Out here, this is my second day in a row. I think I'm gonna try to ride again tomorrow. You know, but let's see what we can do to try to make this happen. So let me just jump into it real quick right now and talk to you guys about some of the topics I'm gonna talk about today. So I'm gonna talk about being what I call a non-productive spouse. Yeah, it's definitely the place to be. I'm gonna talk about National What's Up Day and or just black men in general with the head nod. Like I said, I'm out here second day in a row, and in the morning, I think it's around a little bit after 10, like 10:15-ish. Temperature right now is about 60, high 60s, probably 67-ish, and the temperature's headed on up today as well as tomorrow. And you know, spring is fighting back to turn back into summer. So let's continue to encourage and hope that happens. And matter of fact, where I'm at right now, I was talking about yesterday about a graduation I was going to. I went to the graduation yesterday. It was actually right here, right down the street. We actually parked in this parking garage here, you know, so it was really cool. It was everybody that was there, they got crowned and became doctors of education. I think it's the ED is what the degree is. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it down in the bottom down here. I think it's doctor in education. But it was really fantastic, and I'd probably say it was maybe, I don't know the exact total, somewhere around 50 to 60 students. This was the culmination of their program. They've been involved in it now for 3 years, and from the point that they started in their cohort until they finished, and there was definitely a lot of emotion, and people expressed, you know, a large degree of emotion. I've never been to a crowning ceremony for a doctoral degree, so it was definitely something really to watch and behold. And at the particular ceremony, it's a little bit more intimate than the regular graduation in the school. And somebody in your family or a few members of your family will come up and, you know, they'll introduce the team that you were on for the cohort. So most of the teams were between 3 and 5 or 6 people, and these guys work together to try to get through their classes. I think it was 16 of them. Then they had another capstone experience that took place over probably at least 6 months to a year, and in that they more or less consulted and tried to solve a problem at the educational and leadership level. So actually, the degree was ED. It was a doctor in leadership, is what it was. My bad, I got the two confused here. But and so they had a chance to talk and you know, work and consult with, you know, whoever they were you know, working their capstone project on, and provide guidance. And each one of these groups that go out to try to help and consult, they all, they estimate the value is roughly about $50,000 that they bring each business that's essentially pro bono. And then as you stack that over the number of graduates they've had over the years in the program, it's a value of roughly $5 million plus to the community, which is outstanding, you know. So, and like I said, hats off to all those that have gone through the program and you know, graduated and done, that are headed out to do big things. And when you go to something like this, it's always inspiring to make you think, well, shoot, you know, should I go back to school, or Should I get the next level of degree? And you know, the one thing I always say is, if you're seriously thinking about getting your education, and let's say you're like 40 years old and you've never even gotten a bachelor's degree, you know, and let's assume it would take you 6 years, being older, maybe even 7 years. Let's just say 7 years to get a bachelor's degree because you're older and you gotta work and, you know, work around family and family requirements and all that. Find time to study. So let's say you start the program at 40 and you get done at 47. You know, at 47 you'll have a bachelor's degree. But if you decide not to go to college at 40 and you keep on working, you're gonna turn 47 regardless. You know, so it's better to go ahead and make the initial effort to get the degree and put up with what you got to put up to try to get through, because regardless, one day you're going to be 47 anyway. You might as well have be 47 and have the degree. So like I said, shout outs to all those that graduated, and it was a beautiful ceremony to definitely watch. And you know, shout out to everybody, and I wish everybody luck and prosperity and resilience as they kind of begin their career here. So let's go ahead and jump into the first topic, which is being a non-productive spouse. And so I use this term all the time with my clients, and most people have never really even heard of it, to the point where they're like, what are you talking about, a non-productive spouse? That just, ugh. I said, no. So on the high, so essentially what a non-productive spouse is somebody that provides significant benefits to your tax return, period. That's what they are. And I would probably have to say, when it comes to, if you have, and I've seen this phenomenon before with clients that have, like, for example, one client may make $300,000 a year and their spouse doesn't work at all, you know, so because they have no income, they're going from single to married filing joint. The tables really stretch out a lot in each tax bracket, so they almost double. So in theory, you can almost, you know, don't quote me on this, it's not tax advice, but you can almost earn $600,000 a year and pay about the same amount of income. And so if you have one person that works and the other person doesn't work, they kind of act as a super dependent because they stretch out the table. But if one person earns, you know, 450 grand or 300 grand, the other person earns a lot of money also as well, you're going to end up in a very, very high tax bracket having to pay tax. You know, so all good. That's just the way the system works. And so as long as the spouse can keep their income minimal to almost zero, it really helps benefit the person's tax return, you know, for the married filing joint application that we're kind of talking about here. And so if one person, you know, so typically somebody might have a business on the side that they work at, and they might sell some stuff, or they might do some consulting or whatever, and you know, they may bring in $40,000 a year. They might in the end up, you know, spending $40,000 or $45,000 to try to earn the money. If that's the case, all good, because a lot of stuff that you can't write off as individual W-2 employee, you can write that stuff off as a business owner. You can write off a home office, you can write off transportation, automobiles, you can write off supplies and internet, you can write off, you know, cell phone usage and other costs that you pay for out of pocket that relate to your business that are ordinary and necessary. And if you're just an ordinary person and you have these costs anyway, there's nothing you can do to kind of benefit from them. So the other way around, you can at least shelter some of the income against the expenses, you know, considering that you're operating, you know, reasonably and legitimately. And that helps reduce the amount of tax overall for the household, you know. And so, and the other thing too is that even if you have like a An S Corp, I hear somebody out there on the water. I don't know if they're doing the rescue training or not, but even if you have somebody that's that owns a business and they're an S Corp and most of the money gets spent up in the S Corp with them doing their business and they have to pay themselves a reasonable salary, you know, they may end up earning, you know, $300,000 a year at the S Corp level. Here, hang on one second. On your right. You guys are good. Yeah. So they might end up spending, they might end up earning $300,000 a year, and they might end up paying themselves, you know, a $50,000 a year salary, you know, because it's reasonable based upon the general guidelines of the IRS and what they require. And the majority of the rest of the money is tied up in expenses and maybe even like a defined contribution plan or something like that. You know, the person brought in like 300 grand, and in the end, there's only like a small impact on the household, which might be $50,000 versus earning like $300,000 as a W-2 employee. So that's what the meaning of all these bugs down here, or what they are. But that's what I mean by being a non-productive spouse. It doesn't necessarily mean that you go out and you find somebody that's a scrub or a scrubetta, you know, or somebody that doesn't work, or then you make them your wife or your spouse. It just means that their production that they make is not productive against you actually having to pay more taxes, because they're utilizing the tax code in and of itself in order to, you know, allow the household to pay less tax overall. You know, so, and I've always been in a position, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? I've always been in a position as being a business owner of always being a non-productive spouse. You know, so a lot of the income that I earn, you know, gets eaten up by expenses. And now that I'm a S Corp, you know, I got to pay myself a reasonable salary, which I do. And then, but most of everything else gets eaten up by expenses, you know, and you can make contributions to your retirement account and all that as well to create less, you know, headroom for what ultimately gets taxed. But in the end, you know, it helps the household out altogether. And so I've always advised my clients that end up making a lot of money, and this actually goes for a lot of sisters. I tell them, I say, you guys need to find yourself a non-productive spouse. And they're like, somebody that I'm taking care of and completely responsible for like a child? I'm like, no, you've been listening to too much TikTok. You know, what you have to do is you have to, you know, find somebody that is productive on this planet, running a business or doing something, and then the impact of what they end up earning is minimized because they have expenses. Because just imagine it this way. Imagine if you, as a business owner, you can earn $100,000 in a year and gross, and then you might spend $70,000 or $80,000 earning that money, and you have $20,000 left over. That's what you end up getting taxed on. You know, you don't get taxed on the 100, you get taxed on the 20 that's left over. And like I said, none of this is tax advice at all in any kind of way. It's just for educational purposes only and demonstration purposes only. But if you are a W-2 employee, if you earn 100 grand, they want tax on 100 grand minus stuff that might be, you know, pre-tax, which is like, that would be stuff like medical, dental, vision, 401k. Those are the general, you know, items that you can generally, you know, go against. So if you earned 100K a year as a W-2 employee and you had 20,000 in medical, dental, vision and 401k deductions, they're going to tax you on 80 grand, you know. So, and if you spend all that money, but at the end of the year you only have $20,000 left over, they don't care. They want tax on the 80 grand, where as a business owner, you know, whatever you spend nets out against your, how you doing? whatever you spend nets out against the gross revenue. And if you buy equipment or a vehicle, there's ways that you can run bigger purchases through and minimize the number down to zero. So these are all some things to kind of think about, but that's the basic story behind being a non-productive spouse. And so if you guys want to find out more information about this and see how it might apply to your situation, that type of thing, how you doing? Reach out to me, set up a consultation if you're not already a client, $195 for about an hour. We can definitely talk about this topic and how it definitely would affect you, you know, for sure. So, all right, so let's go ahead and jump on to the next topic. So the next topic is something, it's funny, I was at a cultural event the other day, and they try to engage people in the community, and they're always at a restaurant where there's a food, and it's usually ethnic based. You know, so we've done, you know, authentic Chinese and Thai, we've done Bosnian, Afghan, Indian, Pakistani food, on and on and on. And these are usually folks that are typically, I think the last one was at a Greek restaurant. These are folks that are usually typically first or second generation that are here in the US. A lot of them so far have been first generations, and they have stories on how and why they left their home country, and how what they brought with them was their food, and they wanted to be able to share it with people. So all very super compelling stories. So it's nice to get a story behind the food before you actually eat it. And I think being able to understand those kind of things definitely allows you to enjoy and appreciate it a lot more than if you, you know, just rode up and showed up and then just tried to eat and have your food. So yeah. And so at the last one, they asked a question. They said, hey, what's something that you deal with almost daily that is very specific for your culture or your heritage, and that other people may or may not be aware of, but you kind of want to share with the group? So a number of people that said a lot of different things. They talked about certain traditions, the way they might call, you know, their family members or people in the community, auntie or uncle and cousin. There's 100 different examples of what people said. And so I was sitting there for a while trying to think. I was like, I can't think of anything at all. And then I remembered, I think, I don't know, me and Marilyn do this sometimes. You know, I'm across the room, I'm not sitting with her. I'll look at her, she'll look at me, and then I'll do this look. And then sometimes I'll say like, what's up? You know, and she just mimics me back, and it's just something that we both, you know, giggle about. But for whatever reason, I remember, I don't think we did the what's up this time, but I remember like the what's up thing, and I said, oh, every time I'm out and about, you know, in the streets and you know, riding around or walking or in the mall or in and out of town, and I remember this starting from when I was a little kid, you know. On your left. On your left. Yeah, I remember as a little kid, I don't know how it started and when it started, but I remember people, and I think a lot of it was towards the Soul Brother movement, you know, like, I remember we used to like put our palm out and let somebody slide their hand on it. You know, it was kind of pre the brother man handshake now, but there was always a physical contact. There was always acknowledgement. You know, we wore Zulu shields and all that other type of stuff, and a lot of it was happening during the you know, rap music movement and the R&B movement and all that. So it was just kind of a way of us always acknowledging people. And actually, yeah, it's Richmond Fire and Rescue down here. They're doing swift water rescue training. Is what they're doing. So they're just practicing getting up over these berms in the river. And, yeah, you can hear it right there. So they're down underneath. You might have gotten stuck, it sounds like. So let me let these guys go by here. How you doing? Yep. And so one of the things that we've always done is as brothers, we've always done what's up, you know. So there, and typically, and I tell you, the majority of us will do that. I probably say 75% of the folks that I walk past or see and their brothers, they will acknowledge back. You know, so somebody, it's almost like a fight to see who acknowledges it. You guys have seen it also too as I'm riding around out here. I run into different brothers and whatever, and I always say what's up. And so there's typically, you know, what's going on, man? So another example right there. So, yeah, but it's a really cool phenomenon that takes place, and there's two ways you can go about it. There's what's up, and then there's how you doing. And this is one of the things I talked about during the cultural event. You know, I said there's a difference between the two, between what's up and how you're doing. And so, or how's it going? And so when you nod down, that's a lot of times a lot more typical. And you'll oftentimes find, you know, older adults, that type of thing, will do that. And if you see other people that are outside of your racial demographic as a brother, you can see all the things they got going on out here to this side. This is the Swift Water Rescue Training. And so other folks that are not brothers, typically, I'd say 98% of the time, you know, will always, you know, do that kind of a thing. And so, and I sometimes occasionally run into brothers that won't acknowledge you at all. And I'm not going to say what it is, but over the years, I've determined a pattern of where it comes from. And I mean, they will either ignore you altogether, or they will look you directly in the eye. And if you do upset, what's up, what's down, all that, you know, no acknowledgement whatsoever, and all good. You know, you can't interface with everybody that you pass and you get involved in. But me, as by default, I don't even do the down motion. I always do what's up by default. And so I'll have brothers do what's up and what's down. I think a lot of brothers that might potentially be in a little bit more involved with corporate will have a tendency to do the down motion also as well, and it just kind of embeds itself in you. But I always, now, because I don't have to really answer to anybody at all, I'm always in the what's up mode. So no matter who it is, I don't care what nationality they are, if they acknowledge me with a head nod, I always do an upward movement. And so I've always thought about, and what's the whole purpose of this? So I think people need to be, and it happens out here, it's wonderful. People out here are super, super friendly, which is, you know, always highly appreciated. I wonder what they were doing out here with this stuff. Looks like they had some type of, I don't even know what that is. Maybe some type of jumps or whatever. But yeah, I always try to, you know, acknowledge people in that way. And I think at some point we need to, how you doing? We need to, at some point, have like a national What's Up Day, where all the brothers out here on the planet, you know, that day, whatever it is, it's agreed on. Maybe even National What's Up Day in every month, where the first of every month, all the brothers, no matter what, we always acknowledge each other, you know, what's up worldwide. And that would be kind of a cool thing, you know. And like I said, it's something that I've been involved in all my adulting youth life. I don't even know where it even comes from or how it started. I can't think of any examples even when my dad, you know, would do it. I think he used to always do the downward head nod, you know. So like I said, it's definitely something that started in the later generations, but just something I want to kind of throw out there. Maybe at some point we can have a National What's Up Day, and then maybe we can have a National What's Down Day also as well. That way everybody can get involved in it, you know. So, but I think the main point here is to at least interface and recognize and with folks on a simple level, which can start with just simply just saying, hi, what's going on and how you're doing. So that's it. That's all I got to say about that topic here. Let me get through this group of people here. So I want to end up getting anybody. On your left, man. All right, yeah. All right, so that's that topic. In my life. Oh, shit. Okay. My brother fell. This is black ice. Okay. All right, I'm okay. All systems check. All right, I'm good. So let me just penguin it.